Today we're going to speak to Christian from Savedo. He co-founded the company in 2014. Let's have a look inside. Hello Christian. Let me start by saying we're glad to have you here for the interview to talk about Savedo, the company you co-founded. How does Savedo work and what is your role?
Savedo is an online savings marketplace. So we are bringing together customers on the one hand side that are seeking for better investment opportunities, mainly in the savings space, and banks on the other hand side that want to broaden their scope, want to gather deposits and new customers. And we do that via one single platform and a one-stop shop solution. Me personally, I'm, as you said, one of the founders, and I'm responsible for investor relations, fundraising. I'm doing the internationalization part of the business, and I'm also responsible for marketing and communications.
You recently were voted to top 30 under 30 by Forbes magazine in finance, I think. Are you grateful for that, and why do you think they have chosen you?
Good question. You never know. I guess I've been quite determined on my road of building companies in the past. And that not only in a smaller scope, but also businesses that you might know in the public, like Casacanda, Fab.com. I'm involved in Unique. I did a couple of business angel investments, and now with Savedo, again a business where we've raised over $10 million. So without tapping myself on the back, I guess that might be a few reasons for why they've chosen me. And ultimately, I do believe that one of the criteria there is that you influence actually something and move markets and really disrupt in a way. And that is what we're trying to do with that current business model. Right? We're trying to reshape how financial services works in Europe in a way. So also for that, I guess.
And when did you get started with entrepreneurship? Maybe before you founded the e-commerce company. How did you get into that?
I studied at WHU, close to Koblenz, and that is a university where entrepreneurial spirit is pretty high up there. I had my first encounter on Idea Lab. That was a founders conference or a startup conference, and there I saw actually a speech of Oliver Samba in early 2008. I was kind of inspired of the way how he was thinking which path to pursue in the future. So I did internships at Boston Consulting and Eon and Daimler, but also tried something out at Oliver Samba's European Founders Fund in a venture called Isanum, where I'd been like a country management intern. And that basically sparked this whole interest in basically working very independently, founding something on my own. So I basically finished university bachelor and also master. That was important for me, but then directly moved into founding my first venture out of the masters. So while writing my thesis, I did that.
Okay, and how did you get into fintech and e-commerce before?
I mean, e-commerce was something that I had touch points with through the first internships and my experience there with the European Founders Fund, etc. So I found that quite intriguing. Back in the days, 2010, e-commerce was really a hype topic, something that a lot of investors went for. So when doing our research on what opportunities might be really interesting for us, for me and my co-founders to pursue, we looked a lot at e-commerce and tried to find a business model that not only has great business potential, but actually we can also identify ourselves with and you know, like really have fun founding with. So both criteria held there when founding the company in e-commerce, the Casacanda, in 2011. And 2014, when I moved out of e-commerce, I basically wanted to do something completely different, where I could somewhat leverage my skill set of building something out pretty quickly, that is consumer focused, that is more on a transactional basis and actually about selling something. and at the same time leverage my background in finance studies and move into a market that is nowadays quite hot and interesting to shape. Yeah? I think that has always been so far important criteria for me, to move into markets where I believe at that point of time you can really shape something. So that this was basically like triggering both like 2014, 2011, like my decisions, 2010.
Did you have any legal issues with the business model when you started? Because banking, finance is highly regulated.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is highly regulated in general. If you look at the products that we're currently selling, savings products, deposit products, where you get interest rates up to 2.5% now, those are completely unlicensed in Germany and in Austria. So in order to broker them neutrally, you don't need a license. If I would come to you and say like, you have to definitely invest into that one product, that would be advisory, and then something else would be required from a license perspective. But as we are currently focusing on deposits and just brokering them neutrally, there's no heavy regulation on us as a business. Nevertheless, we are dealing obviously quite a lot with regulation when trying to convince banks out of multiple countries within the European Union to work with us. Because in order for them to offer deposit products in Germany or Netherlands or whatsoever, they have to walk through certain regulatory processes. And then if they want to collect funds and deposits, obviously KYC, AML, all those regulations hold for those banks that we have to basically take into account when talking with them and convincing them to bring to our platform.
Do you think the big players in the finance industry really have an eye on you, or are they caring at all?
Mm-hmm. I mean, on me explicitly, I hope that there's enough banks from abroad that we can offer their products with, that they have an eye on us. I think in general, if you take it one step higher on fintech, there is definitely a lot of stuff going on there in the market. So there's a lot of more traditional players that are trying to grasp what is going on, that are trying to, through multiple ways, engage with fintech startups, whether that's through investment or acceleration, incubation, whether that's through cooperations or whether that's just through workshops and basically like easy encounters. So there's a lot of interest from a bank perspective currently to move into fintech and get something started there. At the same time, I do have to admit that oftentimes those efforts are quite soft and not so much well thought through, I'd say. It's oftentimes just about like being part of it without having a clear strategy of how you want to tackle working with fintech companies or being a fintech yourself one day. So there needs to be like a lot of improvement still there on a mindset side, but the realization phase that something has to be done on the bank level, that has basically already been overcome. So banks know that they have to do something. Question is what? A lot of banks are moving into that area where they're now solving the what, but oftentimes they haven't yet. But it's a trend, it's going on, and the whole sector is being reshaped. I'm always saying like it's not banks versus fintechs or banks and fintechs, it's basically the banks becoming a fintech at some point of time and then playing in the same market as new players, right? And a lot of those older banks, they won't make it into the 21st, 22nd century. And frankly speaking, a lot of fintech that are currently being built out won't make it. And then on the third hand side, that there will be a lot of bigger players from other verticals like e-commerce or social, you know the names, Facebook, etc., that will be playing part in this ecosystem. How that eventually all turns out, I can't tell you for sure, but that's my kind of view of how the market look like in a few years.
On WeChat, you can already send money, and it's even larger than WhatsApp. That's kind of interesting. But there's a digital revolution going on right now. When do you think private consumer banks will be obsolete? That you don't have to go to a store or something like that. Do you think the whole saving market and just the banking will be digital 100%?
That banking will be digital 100%, I'm completely convinced.
How long does it take?
I guess it will take another 20 years. Because if you look at the behavioral patterns of the larger consumer groups here in Germany, it's still, especially like a lot of the older people, and with older I not necessarily mean like only the 70 plus years, but still like 50 plus, etc. They heavily still rely on offline channels, personal consolidation, etc. And I do believe that this will change to 100% digital, but it's not something that will change from today to tomorrow. It's like basically a slowly evolving process where that's going to be the end result. And then whether there won't be any like consumer banking or consumer banks, I don't believe that. There will be strong consumer banks. There's the banks that today have already realized that they need to do something and have started strong activities, like Santander, for example, or Deutsche has made some pretty good decisions already. Don't know how that is pursuing, but those banks will still be around because they have massive customer bases, right? That they can leverage and offer better products to. Whether those products are completely designed by themselves, or whether they are basically sourced from other partners or being offered in partnerships with fintech companies or other. That is another question, and there I truly believe that customers want more choice. If I'm like speaking with you now, you don't care so much about this one bank, but you want to make sure that you have access to the best products, right? And you enjoy at the same time great service. And these are criteria that need to be fulfilled. And I believe you're better off as a bank if you open up your architecture and then also offer services from other players in the market without obviously losing your complete customer ownership on it. But that will certainly help you in the future offering. Now that so many new stuff is popping up and so many alternatives for consumers exist.
Could you give an advice to the young people out there in the audience how they should start to get an entrepreneur?
I get this question quite often, and
okay.
I think it's a very valid question. And I think it also changed over time now that the ecosystem here in Berlin, I'm speaking for Berlin mainly, right? Because that is where I've been over the last 5 years, has changed to more experienced founders, to more sophisticated investors, etc. Where also the bar has risen to basically get funding as a really new guy around the block, right? So I'm always saying, like, my biggest advice is that you kind of like start out in a venture. You like come from university, or you maybe have already gathered some work experience, and then you join a venture that is on the path of growing to something more substantial. So I'm speaking about like a size of 20, 25, 30 people. Initial funding is in, proof of concept is somewhat delivered, and you join those guys in building out their product, their market, their revenue structure, etc. Because you're gonna learn so much at that stage. Important is that you basically work in a function where you can grasp the development of the whole company in some way. So don't be basically too much narrowed down. You're being hired as a business development trainee, manager, or even head of or whatsoever, and then at the end of the day all you do is to pick up the phone and do a call. I think it is important that you get a broader sense of things. Even if it's in business development, itself, but then make sure you have like touch points every left and right, that your managers are basically taking care of your growth path and your learning curve. That is, I think, a really valid way to start out. And here I'm recommending always something between 1 and 2 years, depends on how quickly you learn, how much you can see. You might end up staying with that company because it's going to become a unicorn or a massive company one day, and you're going to be the head of some department. I've seen that. But oftentimes then you're going to move out after 1.5, 2 years, and you've seen a lot. You know what it means not only to basically have an idea, but excel upon this idea and make it successful together with team players and grow yourself. Ideally get some first management experience, and then you're ready to found something on your own, right? I'm not saying that there's not other paths. You can also join as an intern in a venture capital firm or an incubator or whatsoever. That's also a great idea, and for some people that might be more suitable. And you could also found something on your own for sure. And I don't want to discourage people, but oftentimes what I'm seeing, like 95% of the people are not ready yet, right? There's so much to understand first before you actually do something. So I do believe that this middle path there is something that makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes it's better to be number 30 or 40, maybe at Savedo or Facebook or whatever, to found your own company and fail.
I mean, you do. That's a good. I mean, you do gather a lot of experience if you do something and it fails, right? And if you've raised some money and then it fails, you most probably learned even more. Yeah, I guess that's in my eyes, that's always something that I try to recommend. Not only people here that are joining freshly at Savedo, but in general in the market whenever I'm being asked.
In the end, let's ask, what are the best books that you read in the past years that shaped you a little bit, maybe in the early times?
You mean like venture books?
Yeah,
venture
about business,
books?
marketing, not science fiction maybe.
I mean, honestly speaking, I'm not so much reading all of those books because what you see is that like oftentimes it's very shallow advice, and oftentimes it's also very far away from you and doesn't solve your immediate focus. Like especially, I mean, if you're 25 and you're reading Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, right? Obviously, great to read it, but will you be able to derive so many conclusions for yourself at that point of time? I don't know. Is it maybe more beneficial to read something that is more focused on productivity, for example? Yes, I do believe so. There's a lot of books around. You most probably know the names yourself better than I do. That makes somewhat sense, I do believe. What I found for myself, even though I'm not reading so much of that, is Delivering Customer Happiness, or a book fully focused on NPS score. So basically building your product customer-centric. That is something that I believe is very valuable, because oftentimes what you do is you come up with a crazy idea and you have your network, you know a few investors and whatsoever, you build out some product in your garage or whatsoever, but you're not testing it, and you're also not thinking so much whether a customer really wants it, and if a customer wants it, how is he going to be happy with it. And so solving that customer angle and finding ways how to improve or how to build a product from a customer perspective, that is quite helpful to read about. Me personally, I'm skimming through fintech blogs, I'm skimming through tech news, etc. But like all the stuff that you most probably also read. If I really read something in my leisure time, I'm trying rather focus on novels and stuff like that, and don't really do so much the tech stuff. Right?
Because you're working already so much on the day, I assume that. Okay.
No, because I believe like one thing where you can learn the most to actually speak with people, right? That is how you learn the most, and try to get different perspectives. Speak with someone who really nails it in customer service. Speak with someone who's an investor and can give you this perspective. Speak with your peers that are founding companies yourselves. Speak with people who are marketeers and really know how to produce a TV spot. That is how you learn a lot, right? Because oftentimes in our business, the knowledge and know-how, I'm not speaking about managerial tactics and large strategy business, there's a lot, but like really on a tactical level of the things that bring you forward, especially in the first years, there's not so much written know-how somewhere, right? So you really get it from talks and conversations, workshops, whatever it might be. That is really helpful. And so that is how I'm trying to smarten myself up when tackling a new thing, right? So for example, now I've created my first TV spot, and I've never done that before. I've worked for companies where we've done TV, but myself being responsible, never done so. So how do you smarten yourself up? By speaking with other people, not so much reading through blogs and stuff. Helps you way more.
Okay, I think we got a broad overview about Savedo, about your personal experience. We'll put some links down in the description for the audience. Even you mentioned 2-3 books. Put a link of Savedo that you can have a look at how the product works, and maybe if you want to invest or save some money, you could decide to go on your website.
Always a good
Would
idea.
be great. And I'm really glad to have the interview with you, and hopefully we're going to see you soon.
Thanks for the interview.